Hello and welcome to episode 3 of The Clutch Kick. This is our first episode since going live with episode 1 and 2, and I am one of your hosts, Greg Merriman, co-hosted by...
EG. So first off, I just wanted to go through some of the feedback that we received from the first 2 episodes. So I have a list here in kind of an order that I received them, and I remembered them, but nothing really exact. So to start off with, the first one is the length. So they said 1 hour. Are you serious? And yes, it is a 1 hour plus sort of thing, but it's meant to be more like a podcast. So it's not something that you watch on YouTube. It's something that you would listen to while you're either driving to work or maybe working in the car or something like that. Anytime that you don't have to look at it, you just listen to it and enjoy the show. The second question was, is it available for download? Have you thought about SoundCloud? At the moment, it isn't available for download, and we haven't thought about SoundCloud. Or actually, we looked into SoundCloud, but it costs money to actually upload anything more than 180 minutes. So maybe down the track, we will have enough finances to do that, but at the moment everything is going through YouTube, and we kind of want to direct everyone that way because we will post other content such as interviews and event coverage and things like that on the channel. So we want you to look in there and keep up to date with what we're doing. Next one, you should have guests. Guests have been thought, and we do have some lined up, but at the moment this is only being the first 2 episodes, so we'll work up to it, so don't worry about that. Who is Greg? So this is mainly coming from some of my friends. They don't really know Greg. Greg sort of appeared in my scene, like in front of me about a year ago, Tasmania at DCA. So that I knew about him before that, but it was the first time I met him was in Tasmania. So he'd been competing in Sydney, and that's where I heard about him. Actually, no, I met you before that. I just don't remember meeting you.
Yeah.
So that was World Time Attack the year before. And anyway.
I guess I wasn't very memorable.
I met a lot of people, and yeah, it's not really a good excuse, but yeah, I do kind of forget. It's sometimes the big, especially World Time Attack. That is, I meet a lot of people. And I can't even remember sometimes who I said hello to. It all comes into a big blur. Okay, moving on. You kind of went off topic, or on a tangent at least. A story was started, but it didn't seem to be relevant to the topic. So that was probably my fault. I kind of strayed a bit too far, but I don't really want to. Well, we don't really want it to be set and specific. We want to be able to flow through any sort of subject that we want to talk about. And I guess if it does seem that far off, then hopefully one of us will sort of steer it back to the right direction.
Yeah, and I think part of it is we want to go live with this eventually, and I think the fact that we will potentially be live with a comment section going on, we will get pumped with questions and all sorts of stuff during it. So I think we want to be free and feel like we can sort of take a direction. Hopefully we can get back to the main point that we're at, but as we get better at it, I think we'll definitely be more stringent on making sure we're a little bit more structured with it. But I think for now, it's while we get to know each other more and sort of get to know our audience, we'll definitely sort of let things wander a little bit.
Yep. Next question or next feedback. Can you explain who the other people are when you mention them? So that was, again, my fault. I'll do that next time. So I'll try and explain people better instead of just saying their name and assuming that you know who they are. The next point was don't put any visual aspects into the cast. That was just a mistake. So you should be able to listen to this without any sort of visual thing. If we forget, then I think last time Greg pointed out that, you can't see this, and so he just said what he was actually doing with his visual indicators.
I think with that point as well, if the latest and greatest viral video or something comes out and we're passing comment on it, and it's something that potentially a lot of people have seen, then I think it's not too bad if we are talking about visual things, or if we go visual and it's something odd that we've found or an article that we've run into, we will make sure that we start to get them up in description so that after you've listened to the cast or at some stage you can always go and click on that and have a look at what we're actually on about.
Yep. Okay. Have you thought about adding another host? Yes. We've talked about it, but it's just two of us for the time being. Who's Greg? That's the same question as before, but Greg is an ex-Winter Olympian turned drifter, so check him out.
4 years today, opening ceremony.
Oh yeah, that's. I saw that on Facebook today, actually. Oh, that's interesting. E.g., don't be so diplomatic. Slam Greg if he's wrong. Okay, I will. But
I can probably guess a couple of people who that's potentially come from.
I don't think you know them because I don't know who you are.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So, but you can guess if you want. That's fine.
No idea then.
Yeah, you might know. I don't. Yeah, because I asked who you were, so that's what's interesting. Are you going to talk anything else besides drift comps? Yes, we will. Don't worry. There's a lot of things to talk about drifting. Is there going to be any visual aspects to this channel? Yes. So as I mentioned before, there will be other content that we'll hopefully be uploading at some point. I think at the moment our plan is to put some extra stuff up during DCA, and that's as far as I've thought about.
Definitely down in Mount Gambier. We want to try and get some one-on-ones with drivers and do some walk-arounds of cars, some of the cooler cars and some of the interstate guys that we wouldn't normally be able to get to on a weekend. And then after that, we'll try and probably hit up some local guys and do some more as we go.
Yep. Next one is, why does Greg's face change colour all the time? Because he had a TV going and now he switched it off and just put a lamp there. So hopefully it'll be one set colour. Needs more. So the last
pasty
one,
white. Pasty white. That's all you're getting now.
Yeah. The next one was it was kind of a longer sort of point, but is pretty much what it means is it needs more banter and it needs more sort of a positive, negative, or like sides between us just to keep it interesting. So it would be kind of like radio, but I kind of agree and don't agree with that. Like I can understand why radio do it and why it could be interesting, but I think it'll work out the way we're doing it now.
Yeah, and we're also in the dating stage, so I think once we're a little bit past the dating stage, we'll probably be a little bit more willing to bite at each other. But once we get past that, I think we'll sort of be a little bit more like that.
Be afraid, Greg.
I am sort of afraid because I've seen some of your comments in some of our group chats, so you make me scared.
All right, and so there's a couple of other things, but I kind of remembered it as I was reading this out, but that's all right. We'll just move on to the main subject.
Okay, so I guess do we have much news? I guess the news sort of leads into I guess we can start with the news that leads sort of into the subject. I guess one that's close to me and EG is last night the plug was pulled on us running Super Drift under Australian Drift Club this year. It wasn't a decision that was taken lightly and actually annoyed me a little bit because I had put in a fair bit of time and energy recently in the background trying to make it happen. But from a club point of view, it just came to a point where financially, we aren't in a position currently to take the risk with 3 or 4 events losing money last year. And also no guarantee of the amount of cars that were going to show up. And also us having the amount of manpower. And I guess we've got enough numbers of people in the background to make it work. But we don't all have the knowledge yet and the contact base to be able to make it happen. To be a product that we'd be all happy with putting out there. We want to sort of refine a little bit more what we're doing, I guess.
Structure and everything. It needs to be a bit better. Better.
Yeah, and I guess for those listening who don't know, Super Drift was a competition that we ran last year. Myself, along with club president Sam, ran last year to try and fill the hole that New South Wales was sort of, or the lower New South Wales area was suffering between going out to club level practice days before you'd want to step up into a high tech or a DCA series. And then not long after we announced that, High Tech announced that they were doing a Pro-Am series alongside their Pro series. And then we still went ahead and ran ours. But yeah, for most of our events, we lost money. And throughout the season, I was originally going to judge. I judged one round, then decided I wasn't getting enough seat time in general, so I wanted to jump in and drive. And I brought a few guys like EG and a few other guys from all over the place, depending on who was available to judge the further 3 rounds. So that's sort of a little bit of background on what the comp was. We had planned on running it again this year, with High Tech originally making a move to not run their competition anymore, but then they announced that they weren't coming to Sydney anyway, so that sort of left us open. But by the time we did some number crunching and some, as we get deeper into the year already into February, it just started to look more and more unlikely that we'd put something out we were happy with, and that the club's not in a position to risk everything, I guess.
Yeah, that was pretty long. That's a good explanation, Greg. Thank you.
So I guess now, after we posted that online today that it's gone, New South Wales drifting is officially dying, according to a lot of people.
No, it was dying before, but that's what they said, but I don't think they realised how much stuff was going on.
But it's dying, EG. Why is it dying?
No, it's not dying. There's a lot of events going on, heaps and heaps of events. I think they just don't realise, or they have tunnel vision. They just want to look at High Tech and that's it, because I think everyone just wants to be on TV. I don't know.
So I guess coming up next weekend, same weekend as we have Mount Gambier DCA, up at Raleigh Raceway is Halfway Hangs.
That's right.
Probably I guess I would probably say the largest collection of invited cars to an event, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know if it's actually invite only or you apply for an invitation.
You apply for an invitation, but you apply to a couple of the groups of guys who, I think it's Curse Sundays, Hit and Run, and I'm not sure what guys out of Queensland run and organise that event.
Secret Drift, Carnage. It's Carnage, isn't it?
Yeah, Street Carnage, I think.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think something like that.
The website's Carnage, Street
Yeah.
Carnage, something like that.
Yeah,
I'm not too sure. I'm not part of that scene.
Yeah, so as far as I'm aware, what they do is they all get up to one of the holiday parks, just not too far from the track, and they hold a bit of a meet and greet on the first day of their event, sort of get all the cars out and do some photos and do.
Yeah,
I think
for 4 days.
Yeah, and then they have 2 days of drifting after that at the raceway, and I think for the guys looking not to compete, for a laid back atmosphere, just getting out thrashing with mates, with good looking cars, this is something that often gets overlooked from, I guess, a mainstream point of view, because people think that mainstream anything is a competition.
Yeah, kind of agree. I think each scene has their own sort of thing, and if you're in the sort of, I don't know how you call it, so I would say the fashion scene, then
yeah, I think in the US
sort of event.
Yeah, in the US I think they call it Hot Boy, but I don't think we call it that here, because it's seems a bit funny. But
no.
Yeah, and I think this year for me personally, considering I've got a lot of the guys who attend that event, that's been even fairly quiet on social media, but I think because it's also well established and so many people jump in on the initial round of entries, they sort of sit back, and once the event happens, there will be an absolutely crazy amount of social media, I would say, coming out of that event.
Heaps. There's usually everyone goes spastic over those videos and photos that come out of that.
Yeah, and I think that actually ends up being some really good quality driving because everybody sort of put more time and energy into making sure their car works, keeping it fairly basic, but then making it look good. All the cars are pretty even, and actually some of the videos that have come out of that, plus some of the Bring the Bash style events, have been some of the best tandems, other than, some of the really high level comps like Cash Kings was some of the best tandems that, we're sort of seeing at the moment, not 5-car gaps hanging between cars. So I think that's a real positive. So that's one reason that New South Wales drifting isn't necessarily dying.
No. There's also the practice days at Revolution Motorsports holes as well.
Yeah,
so
and
they're during the week though. But yeah, they're really good days. They're really chilled. Lots and lots of seat time. Like, I think there was so much seat time that I blew up my car last time. That was fun.
Yeah, last time I don't think I made it down there because I think I'd blown my car up already.
Yeah.
For about the 15th time last season. But I guess a lot of people have questioned why, and we're not working with those guys, but we're in chats with those guys now, and people wonder why they're not holding more. But I guess for all the clubs and all the groups currently, there's no justification to hold more. Everybody's sort of sitting on social media screaming out for more events, more driving time, more of everything. But then when push comes to shove, the numbers tend to be fairly low.
Yes.
Wakefield ran a couple of days last year. I think their last one that was actually run by Wakefield itself had 11 cars or something.
Yeah, I think I don't know which one that was because they advertised really poorly, I guess, because they kind of keep commenting events on their original post about drifting is back at Wakefield, and you kind of don't see it. It disappears into comments, and you don't even know the events are coming up. So the amount, it's really hard to say. I think a lot of people weren't aware that it was happening, and was probably one of the issues. But there were already so many events anyway. Like there was the Wakefield Revolution Days. There's the Wakefield Days themselves. There was Super Drift. There was High Tech because they were still running. There was the ADC, the Australian Drift Club, their normal skid pan figure eight.
Once a month for either one of those. Then Driving Sports holds.
Yep.
They try and hold they do a Saturday night or a Friday or Saturday night, depending on what they can get, once a month to do both wet pan and figure eight, so you can bounce between both if you want to sort of get a feel for it. And then they also hold at least one wet pan a month, so they've got 2 events going on each month.
Yeah.
So.
And then there's Rayleigh if you really want to go there. And last year there was also Bring the Bash as well. That happened twice last year, I think it was.
Yeah. Last year there was a lot of driving because I think they might have only run one bash last year, but they also had...
It was 2, because one was when I was in Japan.
Okay, and then, that's when we ran... you judged second round of Super Drift, so...
Yeah, it was the third round.
Yeah.
So, there was a lot of drifting in New South Wales. So
and at that stage, Kembla was still open as well. So Kembla was having... once or twice a week at night time, you could just pay and rock up to the track like $50 or $100 and just and thrash a bunch of laps, and that was before it got shut down sort of later in the year. So there was
I didn't know about that.
There was a lot of driving.
There's Raleigh as well.
Yeah, and Raleigh. Yeah, you said Raleigh. And they've got, I think, 4 Matsuris a year, continuing that.
Yeah.
And a 4-round competition maybe this year. I think they ran 5 the year before. They may have dropped a round, I think, just to sort of cover themselves. But yeah, it's funny when we sit back and sort of put those numbers out. But I guess the thing that people want is they want to be spoilt for choice.
Yeah. Well, they want to be on TV.
Yeah, or they want to be on TV.
Because all that happened was High Tech cancelled, so that was how many rounds, or that one event out of all that stuff, and everyone's like, drifting is dead. That's in New South Wales. That's not right. There's so much stuff other, and everyone reacted in a way that it was the worst thing ever. Which it is bad that it stops, but it's there's so much other stuff happening that you've got other things to go to.
And I guess I guess another reason that drifting was dead in the last 7 days was the announcement from Luddenham that that absolutely blew the internet to pieces. I think within minutes of that post going up, that there was
Are you looking for that post?
Yeah, I'm looking for that post because I want to see.
I think they deleted some comments though.
Not so much about the comments. So they're addressed to drifting. Drifting will not take place at this stage. However, there is plans to hold drift events and a construction of a dedicated concrete drift track in the future.
Yeah.
So I'm not understanding in that sentence where they said drifting will never take place on the main circuit.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't see that, and there was in conversations with various different people that said they understood it as no drifting allowed, but that was completely something that they wanted to hear, I guess, because everything that I've experienced about them, about Luddenham, was that they were very pro drifting. They designed the track for drifting in mind, even though they're not allowing it now. I think they've given a valid reason, and also they're sort of, in the meantime, they're going to think about doing something else for drifters, which is a positive thing. But as people got on Facebook and then they started slamming them.
Yeah, and I think that the hard part is knowing. So I think we can sort of put the information out that we know through Shane. Shane Beresford is a drafter, as far as I'm aware. It's his day job, and he competed in, I think, the last ever Super Drift out at Oran Park, and I think put himself on the podium at the last round of Drift Australia, if I remember correctly. He'll probably know that this has gone up and be able to correct us, but I think he actually placed. I'm pretty confident in saying that he did really well at the last ever round of the amateur Super Drift alongside Drift Australia at Oran Park on the South Circuit there. So he's been in the scene a long time, and he's one of those guys that anybody can sort of message and throw an idea at him, and he'll chase it. If you're like, oh, I've seen this big car park somewhere, he'll message that council. He's always in there. They're sort of going for it, and he's had a lot to do with the track going in. So a little bit of inside info from there that I think we can probably release is that the asphalt company told the track owners that the track should be left to cure for at least 12 months to 2 years before drifting's allowed on it because of the damage that we do to it. On the back of that information, I contacted a few people who I know deal with some of the tracks and some of the V8 supercar tracks and run series on those tracks, and asked, well, why don't they have a problem with us jumping on there and tearing up their track? And they don't actually have an issue with track surface. Their issue is with track edges. They don't think we do any real damage to the track surface itself. So knowing that little bit of background, that's why that release was made. And also, I think as far as I'm aware of what the plans are for the dedicated drift circuit, whatever it's going to be, is similar to what Oran Park used to have, with a long sort of runway area into a skid pan area, which, multi-purpose, could be used for all sorts of driver training and all that sort of stuff.
It was just concrete, wasn't it?
The plan is for concrete, but knowing when Luke was having all the issues up at Archerfield with the track tearing up, he said he'd ideally concrete the whole place, but
Yep.
concrete is ridiculously expensive. But you get
It's much
lots
more
of
than asphalt.
yeah.
Yeah.
But longevity out of it is a lot better.
Okay.
So they're, catch 22 on all that. And if those guys have the funds to put that in and they think that long term that's the best prospect, look, honestly, a dry skid pan area is probably what we need almost more than anything at this stage, I would say.
I
Somewhere,
think more options is good for us, especially
yeah.
if we can if it's big enough to sort of make different shapes, then it'd be kind of cool. Because there's some really cool tracks which are pretty much just flat. Like you could then one of the biggest ones at the moment is Mayhan, and that's pretty much just flat. It's just the corners and are in the right sort of shape where you can do some really cool stuff, and there's a wall as well. So so that's a flat track, and everyone loves it. Um, another
But
flat track is Suzuka Twin as well. That's really flat.
even the drift park at Fuji Speedway, just that really
Oh
long,
yeah,
skinny one, and it's got
yep,
like big fast entry. I think they can run it both directions, and then just
yep,
two different sized sort of switchback
yeah, that's right.
um,
Yeah, you can get like
radius
lots of
corners through
S's
it.
or a really slow amount of S's.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think that's good from a point of view of guys like us who are willing to chuck it in a little bit faster. But then from a lower level point of view, we sort of in Sydney we progress straight from a wet pan that's a little bit wet and wild onto a little track now that has walls everywhere where
Yeah,
you've got
it's
a good
really
chance
dumb.
of doing a lot of damage to your car. So it's hard to, even if we did have access to some of the bigger tracks, in the Sydney Basin, we don't necessarily we have the driver skill of the guys who have gone out and got experience from interstate or been around a long time like yourself. But again, we're missing that gap again. We keep creating this gap between our beginner / novices to sort of our junior and senior drivers. So I think that's the gap we've got to aim for, and then we have a big enough community that we can sustain some of these bigger events. I don't know if that's something you necessarily agree with, but I think that's something that I'm sort of starting to notice more than anything. A lot of people just sort of feel safe and just stick to wet pan, and you never see them progress off it
Yeah,
because there's nowhere to
yeah,
go.
yeah, kind of. I think the options that are presented to them are more things like comps, and that's where it kind of falls short because there really needs to be other sort of things besides comps. So there is practice days at Wakefield, but you kind of everything sort of every everything's kind of set in their own sort of routine. Like there's not really any comps at Wakefield. Rayleigh, the most I hear, I know they've got practice days, but the most I hear from them is comps again. They have
No,
flat series
they do.
and
They have a fair few practice days.
okay,
There's a couple of practice days between the comps. Plus, you do get a fair bit of practice time within the comps, unlike what we get at High Tech was running on Figure Eight and what we were running with Super Drift on Figure Eight, where you're trying to condense a top 32 or a top 24 down into a 5 hour period, and you're trying to smash it as quickly as possible. And the fact you can't line cars up to hit the run as soon as another car's gone, you're sort of stuck with a circular track, I guess.
yeah. The other, I think, biggest issue is the selection. So because there's so many people in Sydney, there should really be a lot more options. But really, there's only the Figure Eight wet pan, isn't there?
Yep, that's all we got at this stage.
And there's how many million people in Sydney?
I looked
Five,
it up.
six,
I looked it up the other day when
six
we were
million
arguing.
people.
Yeah, I think it's around 5 or 6 million. It's a
Yeah.
good, like that's in the greater Sydney area, but that's a good 20%, just over 20% of our national population.
And and all they've got for drifting is a wet pan and a Figure Eight with walls on it, which shouldn't have walls on it, and that's it.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is
And
dumb. And then you have to
and
go
the
out to Wakefield for
Well, and I don't think
circuit.
necessarily. Yeah, but I guess going to Wakefield isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like a 3 hour drive from the center of Sydney to get to Wakefield isn't. I don't look at it as a hindrance. I guess for some people it might be, but I think even from Western Sydney, you're only looking at maybe an hour and a half drive. I've got friends out in the Campbelltown area, and yeah, they can leave at
Yeah.
6:30 in the morning and be there before driver's briefing and sign-in even opens up.
Yeah.
So it's not far at all.
No,
But
it's not.
the hard part with that, and we looked at running a round of Super Drift down there, is the sheer cost on a weekend to make it happen. And with sheer cost comes the risk of drivers not showing up. And I think that's what we face. And a lot of people, again, as I said, are too intimidated to step off the wet pan, and they need to, I guess, there to be a stepping stone, because Wakefield's a fairly intimidating place. Especially,
it's okay. I
Yeah.
don't think it's that bad. There's hardly any walls. There's so much runoff. I think people assume that because it's such a big track, you have to go fast, but you don't. You ease into it. If you need to go into the corner at second gear, then yeah.
But it's changing those assumptions, though.
Yeah, that's right.
Because people see everything you see is drifting done right, or drifting done fast, or drifting done with huge angle, or professional cars, all this sort of stuff. And and you sort of look at it and you go, I can't match that, so I shouldn't be out there. Or, if I don't have that, I can't do that. So they end up sitting back for too long. I remember my first Wakefield day with the Revo guys, and man, I got no idea what I was doing. I'm a second gear warrior from the figure eight, and by the end of the day, I'm just trying to keep it pinned down the front straight, top of third into short course, and I'm just missing the corner by miles. And
yeah,
once you're out,
if you turn up with your car and we were there, then we would probably hassle you. I'm pretty sure we would, because like, oh look, it's a pro car, so we'll just go see how good they are.
No, but this is before it was my pro car. This is when it was still street driven with no lock mods.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, I learned to drive as a little bit before I went to pro. Thank you very much, sir. So yeah, I guess it's giving people an organic stepping stone sort of system to get there, if you sort of get what I mean. Sort of encouraging people to take that next step, nurturing them through to the next step, and then pushing them towards those bigger tracks and filling those drift days so that they do feel comfortable. And I think that's when we can start to justify more days, because it's hard to put on a drift day, and the number of us who always have broken cars, this is you and I included right now. So a Revo day happening on this weekend for us, we wouldn't be there. As much as we'd love to be there, we wouldn't be there. We don't have cars running. So that hurts them. That would hurt them for numbers if they were relying on us to be there. But if you end up with a bigger spread of drivers, that doesn't become an issue. If 50% of if 50% of the drifters are broken, but 50% of your population is 250 drivers, 500 drivers, it's not really a big deal. You're going to fill the 40 spots that you need to break even on that event with no drama at all. And I think this is where we've sort of got to get back to it and have people willing to do it. I also know a lot of people have ended up putting cars in garages because I'm not, stuff it. I'm not going to.
Or they sell them. I'm not sure why. Yeah. I don't understand why they do that. There's so much. If they're so
because we're not going to drive figure eight.
Yeah,
but we're not going to drive figure eight.
They just want the other one. Yeah, that's right. They don't want those slow courses, or they don't want a non-televised event that they don't want to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, and it takes me back to like what I enjoy about drifting. Not one of my favorite things about drifting is the community. I enjoy the people. I enjoy just getting to meet people. But my favorite part of drifting is the sensation of the car sliding underneath me. And I don't really care if it's slow or fast. There's just something cool about the way the car pivots and moves underneath me, and that's what I enjoy the most. So for me, figure eight isn't necessarily such a bad thing. You know, I'm getting more comfortable with entry techniques, and I'm really starting to enjoy throwing the car in on big entries. But still, my happy place is sort of just sitting on the accelerator, modulating it, and just letting the car do its thing. And I guess it's people getting back in and remembering why they enjoy driving and going out there and trying to enjoy that rather than, I guess, for some using drifting as something that they put on social media just to look cool and not some and
Well,
not
that's
some
part
and,
of drifting. Drifting
yeah
is originally it was because you look cool, and that's part of why it became popular is the coolness. But
there's got to be
it's
more to it than that
yeah,
for most to be able to put that much time, energy, and money into it.
yeah, it's how do you say it? So yeah, it is to show off, and I get that part because I like doing it. It's fun. I can understand it, but it's you just need to actually realize where you are. So if you need to go to those days to keep drifting, and people will come. So the more that you promote drifting, the more people you can show off to. And that's what you need to go to those events. So, but it is to show off. Definitely to show off.
Yeah, well, you know, it's naturally a flary sport, but uh, you know, it's there's still got to be a core value to why somebody does it, and it can't just purely be to show off. I guess for some, if they've got a massive checkbook, then it's
Yeah,
purely to show off. But there's
yeah, I
got to be
know.
more to it than it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's part. Yeah, it's you do have the competition aspect of it as well.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
you sort of drive within your means, and if that's what you're stuck with, I think a lot of people also start to look too much. I guess the globalization of the world using Facebook and YouTube has probably been a bit of a hindrance as well. I guess everybody looks at the internet and goes, "Oh, if I lived in Japan, I could drive hundreds of tracks or whatever." And it's like,
yes and no. That's. I know what you mean. People in you see all the videos in Japan, but it's just like here there are rules, so you can get away with some things, but it's the same as here. You kind of do stuff and see how far you can get away with your car before you get caught. Because police, yeah, the same thing with police, so you can get defected, and the track availability. Yeah, that's true. Like there's so many more tracks, which is so weird because the size of the country is tiny compared to the size of our size of Australia, and how they can actually get so many tracks and people don't complain, or they come to an agreement, I guess. So they'll say yes, you can run between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. As soon as you're outside those times, you shut down, like you cut off, and they do that in Japan. I don't understand why we can't get it working here.
but so a few questions for you because I haven't, I've been to Japan with the ice skating, but I haven't been there for drift purposes only.
Yep,
So you have a car at Ebishu,
I have two
two
cars.
cars at Ebishu. Oh,
Yes,
baller over here. But it's
Ebisu
nothing to match. There's nothing to match his 55 in his backyard. Um,
21.
um, so if you want to drive outside of Ebishu, how easy?
Ebisu.
How it? How I don't know.
It's
I'm sounding like a bloody.
Ebisu.
Okay, but you sounded like a Japanese person. I'm a white person. Um,
Actually, no, Japanese sometimes say Ebis.
so just leave out the su part, I guess, or just leave out the u part. Um, so you want to drive away from that complex.
Yep.
How easy is that for you?
How easy? As in if with those two,
Logistically,
one of those two
yeah,
cars.
yeah, logistically.
So with that car, I need to organize a tow. It needs to be on a truck. I don't think my license actually is because it's just like here. You need to have a there's a weight limit to your license. So whatever that is, I'm pretty sure the international license doesn't cover it. I think some trucks do, but the ones that you can easily hire, no. So last time I had to organise a friend to organise another friend to hire and drive the truck to get my car down from Ebisu to Nico. So
And how far is that?
That I'm going to say in time because you probably understand it more. So it's 2 hours away. I think distance wise, it's only 100 kilometers, but it's 100 kilometers in Australia. You kind of think, oh, it's only an hour away, maybe even less. But it's over 2 hours because Japan traffic.
Yeah,
all that stuff. So it's logistically it's the same. You can't get. I think having a trailer, you need a special license. So because it's considered an articulated vehicle, so it's like a big prime mover with a that's what they consider it as. So you need a special license. So that's why everyone gets those trucks. I think they're easy to get.
So, say you were living in Japan.
Yep.
And you had your track only car, so no license plate on the car to be able to travel to and from an event. Chances are you're not going to own one of those trucks, and chances are most people are going to be renting them, trying to get to their chosen track, unless it's their local track and they can somehow get it there cheap and easy.
Yep. So they would have to see if they can get a hire truck. Sometimes they have mates with them, so they'll ask them. But if it's a popular event, then those trucks are going to be gone. They're going to be hired out, or they're going to be expensive. And people don't earn that much in Japan. Actually, I probably shouldn't really be. This is my experience because I don't really know because I haven't lived there. But
So where I'm trying to go with this is everybody likes to think that the grass is always greener. Yeah. Right. So it's easy. If I lived in Japan, look, they've got. If I go on YouTube, there's hundreds of these little tracks that are all over the place that I could go and drive at. But we have. Yes, we're a bigger country, but we also have more freedoms to travel. I've got a car and a trailer. I've got enough space to have my tow car, my trailer, my race car, and I can hitch that up and go anywhere I like in the country and go drive. Japan, they've got the same freedom, but they don't have the space to own the tow car or all that sort of stuff. So it's not as easy as it seems to, ideally Japan would be the same as here. Yeah. I just go down the back, I pull my tow car out, pull the race car out and I go, but it's not like that.
There's pros and cons and it depends on money as well. So it's really hard to say. It is so the amount of tracks available in Japan is so much more
huge.
Than here. Yeah. So that's one big positive for there. But sometimes those days are limited. They have sound restrictions, but that's the same as here. So you can't. There's no events running at some of the tracks here. If there are sound, because Rally's one of those, and same with Marulan, they have noise limitations, so you have to put mufflers on. But that's the same as Japan. What else? The space you have. So a lot of people seem to live in apartments. It's really unusual that you see someone with a huge workshop, like when you see Daigo's workshop, or I'm trying to think of another famous Japanese person that I've met.
But I guess even Daigo, from definition, yes, it's huge for Japan, but that's not necessarily huge for here.
No, it's not huge for here. I think it's an average size workshop here in comparison.
Yeah. So I think that's all the sort of stuff that should be sort of taken into account. So there's going to be restrictions, and you've got to drive within your means with what you're sort of stuck with, and that's sort of the point that I'm getting at with where we're at currently.
In New South Wales.
Because people are looking at it and going, "Oh, I'm going to leave my car parked because the grass is greener on the other side." Like, "Oh, I'm just going to go to Japan. I'm just going to do XYZ instead." And Japan's got that one great complex where you can go and drive your 5 circuits. You can go and do it multiple days in a row, but that complex could be almost anywhere in the world. It's not that Japan is better. That complex is better. And if you get what I mean by that, and there are drift dedicated tracks popping up all over the world now. I guess you've got Driftland. You've got Driftland in Scotland, which is pretty world famous now.
Yeah, but they're starting to bring in more rules as well. Because I think part of the attraction with Ibisu is that you're a bit freer, so there's less sort of scrutiny on your car. There's a lot more options as well, because I think Driftland in Scotland, that's only one track with multiple layouts.
Just one track, multiple layouts.
Yeah, whereas in Ibisu there's 7 tracks or 8 tracks, and some of those have multiple layouts. So I'm not sure if it's a fair comparison. I think Talem's cool. Talem, the Bend, or it's cool.
Yeah, you've got the new track going in there. You've got Archerfield as a dedicated drift track. You got JDMX Park as a dedicated drift track. So currently, with our fairly small drift population, Australia now has 3 dedicated. Well, will have 3 dedicated drift tracks, and I think that's something that people often look over, or they're sort of like, "Hey, it's more than 3 hours from my place, so it doesn't really exist." And
it doesn't
but I guess
count.
I think
So pretty much it's a poor attitude from the New South Wales people, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't say only the New South Wales guys, because I know even the South Australian scene has struggled a little bit, because people look at JDMX Park and like, nah, it's 3 hours outside Adelaide. I'm not driving that far for.
It's not that far, yeah.
For that track or whatever, or I'm saving myself until the Bend opens or whatever. But New South Wales went through the same stage where my car, I'm selling my car, I'm parting it out until Wakefield comes back. Well, Wakefield's now been back a year as of like 3 days ago. I went down to the first day that it reopened, and there doesn't seem to be that many more cars than there was last year.
No.
For the amount of people saying that they're pulling cars out of garages or building cars. So I think this is where people have to be careful on how quickly they jump to conclusions on a situation. I think if people want to make it work, they will make it work. If people find it easier just to complain or put it in the too hard basket, well, that's the option that most people are sort of going to go down the road of. So I guess looking at the New South Wales scene too, EG and myself and a few representatives from a few of the clubs from around the Sydney region or the Greater Sydney region got together, a couple of weeks ago for a sit down just to see where everybody's head's at. A lot of people think that there's nothing going on in the background and everybody's sitting on their hands hoping that the magic will happen and that Sydney Motorsport Park will open its doors, or Luddenham will all of a sudden decide, hey, we're a drift-only track, everybody come drive 24/7. And I think it's the first time in a long time that a lot of those guys from the different clubs have sat down and sort of had it out about where they see it going and the direction for attack. And I think it was a good step forward in mediating a potential move forward with being able to approach tracks about numerous things: cost, availability, being able to push for numbers, not cutting into each other's events, which I think is one of our biggest things. While ever we have a small population of drivers, that the events need to sort of give each other a little bit of room so that they aren't cutting into each other's margins, because you're better off having an event. For me personally, I feel like you're better off having an event over full or pushing people away than having two events run on the same day where the organizers are losing money on both events, because
yeah, that's really
when they could just be on the same page. So a lot of people don't think that there is this work going on in the background, but there is actually a whole lot going on in the background. And yeah, it's going to be probably a slow process to start with, but I think it's a step forward in the right direction. I'm not sure where your head was at after that discussion, but for me, I felt positive about that being more open. When do you not just want to go drifting?
There are some times, but yeah, generally I just want to go drifting.
You're drifting.
Yeah. Wish I brought my drift car up, then I could have checked out some of the roads on the way home. Just have a look, that's all. Wasn't going to do anything. I wouldn't do that.
No, you make this conversation too awkward and put me in a spot where I have to try and keep this conversation going.
That's all right. So that about that, it was good. I think it's something that has happened before though, and they did try to do it. The same sort of players, groups, teams were there last time. So this time, it kind of felt the same, but I'm hoping
it was
the
involved
same
with
but
that
different.
one.
Yeah, it was the same, but it was different. So the outcome, I'm expecting something to be different this time. But
yeah, and I think there being a little bit of fresh blood within that group. Nick Nielsen from Revolution Motorsport. I guess they're not. I guess
Nick
they're
is good. Yeah, I like.
Yeah, and I guess what would you call Revolution? I guess it's a club, and he's sort of the leader of the club. I guess they're not really a registered club, but
seems like it. I think we can label him that way, but
yeah,
I don't think he labels himself that way. I think he's just a representative of them.
But
I'm
he is.
sure.
But I would
really
say
good.
he is
he's
one
a good
of
driver. Yeah.
Yeah, really switched on. You can tell purely is doing what he does because he loves drifting and he wants to go and rip skids.
Yeah.
And
wants to make it better as well.
Yeah, and he does it from a really level-headed point of view. So I think him sort of being in there mediating the guys who had been together on the failed South Circuit arrangement was really, really good. And I know we've even got some constant messages and flow going because of him. And so, yes, there are things happening in the background, and yes, there are some great guys in there, hopefully pushing to make things better. And they're a group of guys who couldn't care less for the competition side of things. They literally just want to be able to go and drive and drive more often and drive different places. So hopefully that is a positive thing. Yes, as you said, it's potentially got a vibe that it had years ago, but I don't think it's something that it's one of those things where if it doesn't happen, nothing moves forward anyway. So there's no harm in trying.
Yeah, it's really similar to me. I think you went around for it, so.
What would your alternative solution to that be then?
Me?
Yeah.
I probably won't answer that question truthfully.
Yeah, okay. I sort of know. Yeah, but I guess knowing what we know, and hopefully this, in a few months' time, that more information will be able to be shared, that it does work out, and that even just knowing where each club is gives us a way to move forward. And there were definitely some great ideas thrown around, and with being able to approach government to sort of educate, for the drift scene to sort of educate itself about what drifting is, and I think all that sort of stuff. So definitely some great points raised, and I think it's going to take a little bit of time for those ideas to make their way through the community, but I think it's going to take a few of us jumping in and actually sort of pushing them, and I guess that's what we're trying to do with this in some ways, is give drifting a little bit more of a voice. And
but so try and influence or try and
Yeah,
more people.
influence. I think influence is the right word. As long as there's the right intentions behind influence, influence is a good thing.
Get more drifting.
Yeah, definitely get more drifting happening again. So
But
that
like coming back to the original point, I really don't think drifting is dead here in New South Wales. There's so much stuff happening.
yeah,
So
but I
much.
get, but people are feeling like because new tracks aren't opening up or existing tracks were shut down to us that it's gone somewhere. But there's never stopped being at least somewhere to go drift at least once a month. You've still
Yeah,
always been able to go and drive.
and there's a lot of people pushing to get the ones that have closed down or have issues and try to resolve them and try to find ways to help bring the tracks back for some reason, whatever
Yeah,
reason they've closed. Like,
yeah. And I guess so. We can probably run through a little bit, what we do know about the places that you see often spoken about on Facebook. People being like, well, why can't we go there? Why can't we go there? Western Sydney International Dragway, which would be a great place to start. Big open car park. Fernando World runs Drift School Australia out of it. Basically, it they're allowed to run Drift School there because it's classified as driver training. Two people must be in the car at all times. Even when they run drift demos there, it is run as driver training. And basically, the way that area is zoned, it can't be used for other motorsport purposes. It is, it's marked down as a dragway.
but they hold the
Yes.
rally sprints there.
So rally, as far as I'm aware, when I looked into legislation and I did a whole bunch of reading about it,
Yeah,
rally falls under a different category when it comes to motorsport because rally is held on public roads everywhere, all over the world, even within Australia. So your rally events fall under a different legislation when it comes to New South Wales. The legislation is different for other states. South Australia is completely different because they have two street events on the same weekend for drifting next weekend. So
yeah,
within
good
within
timing.
within a 40-minute drive of each other. So you've got the Mount Gambier event and you've got the Bayside event, both on the same weekend. So it's just that New South Wales legislation is a little bit different, and this is something that can potentially be changed through just some different laws and some different legislation. But again, until I think the community can show itself as being probably a little bit more sensible, and not just sensible, but I guess mainstream, that would probably help with a potential change in legislation. The next big one is directly next door, and that is Sydney Motorsport Park, whether you're talking North Circuit, South Circuit, GP Circuit, Brabham Circuit, doing mungies down the front straight, doing 360 entries into turn one, whatever you want to do there. They have their structure is basically a board of directors underneath a car club. There is no drifters on that board of directors. It is heavily influenced by bike races and by circuit races, but I think heavily influenced by the bike guys. And with the current attitude towards drifters, they they hold the power to say basically no, we don't want you on the track. If you want to go into some details about why their attitude is that towards us, I don't know if that's worth sharing, but yeah.
Okay.
I want to flip that onto you.
The attitude. I'm not too sure actually. I know that. Did we talk about this?
Nah, come on,
No.
be controversial. We talked.
Controversial.
Come on, be controversial.
Um, kind of put me on the spot actually because I know I did have a meeting with one of the guys there a few years ago, the ARDC guys, and he had a really different understanding of what drifting was. And I sort of sat down and spoke to him for about an hour, and he was very set in his understanding of drifting, and I couldn't seem to sway him at all. So that's, if he's someone that's fairly influential there, then he's definitely gonna explain the wrong things to other people, and he'll look very negative towards allowing drifters onto that track, especially if the motorbike guys and some of the circuit guys want to the primary users of the track. So,
but what were those views? Like, what's their what? Like, I know this is a few years ago, but what
So at the time, he sort of looked at it as glorified burnouts. But even that I was kind of annoyed about, because burnouts, I'm not too sure if everyone knows about it, but there is some skill involved with burnouts as well, like proper burnouts. Not talking about the stuff on the street where they just sort of smoke tires,
sit on the brake.
Yeah, it's the burnout competitions. They do have things like proximity and doing power whips, use of the skid pan, and you also have to last a certain amount of time as well. Like, there's a lot of
something you probably have a problem with, but
no, definitely not. Anyway, so if that guy sort of thinks about it that way, and he has his own sort of ideas that isn't really what drifting is, then yeah, you're definitely going to it's going to be a fight to get drifting allowed onto South Circuit or Eastern Creek, and Sydney Motorsport Park.
Yeah. So and I guess that leads back into us trying to make drifting more mainstream and more understandable as to what it actually is.
Yes. So I kind of feel that person was a typical kind of old guy where they're very stubborn and closed off.
Preconceived ideas, and those ideas aren't necessarily going to change unless something dramatic happens.
But I know other people have said the same thing about me as well. I
don't know what you're talking about, mate.
But yeah, I think it's a lack of understanding. I do try and keep myself open to ideas and things, but I will listen to it. But if I think it's wrong, I'm definitely going to shut them down as well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, getting back to Eastern Creek, it would be good if we can get someone in there and educate them, but I don't think it'll be me.
Yeah.
Unless it's through this channel, then if you're listening, then I'm happy to give another explanation, hopefully in a way that you can understand it better, but please be open to ideas.
Yeah. So, and I know that the clubs that currently run out of Sydney Motorsport Park are, constantly asking and, just praying that, eventually that they might relinquish and let us out on the big track. So anybody who questions and thinks that Driving Sport and Australian Drift Club are doing absolutely nothing to try and get on the main circuit, and they keep asking on different Facebook pages, both clubs are constantly asking.
Yeah.
So don't think anybody's sitting on their hands avoiding that. So next was, I guess we spoke about Luddenham earlier. The track is going to be open soon. Hopefully, from an economics standpoint, they're going to want to return on their investment, and hopefully drifting will end up having to be part of that, and that would help us accelerate our process to being on there. But at this stage, it's just a bit of a waiting game.
Yeah.
That they've been advised by the asphalt company to keep us off there. Go. You're gonna go.
Right.
Go. Yeah.
No, that's right. It is a private track, so getting online and saying that they're dickheads or that other.
Can you say that? That's scandalous. I don't know. I'm not sure you can say that. Can
you? I think it's wrong. Like, you can sort of express that you want to get drifting on there, but they've got no reason to allow you to drive on there because it's their own track. They can do whatever they want. Because Sydney is different. Sydney Motorsport Park is government-owned facility, privately managed. I think is that what it
Yeah.
is? Yeah.
Yep.
So you can complain to the government and they should allow. But London is completely their own sort of. They self-funded. I'm pretty sure.
Yep. But
Yep.
like purely self-funded.
And
I think they may
so-
have used some. They
Help,
may have
yeah.
used sway within the government to help them get the go-ahead to put it in.
Yeah.
But all the money has been fronted from them, as far as I know. So I guess it's the equivalent of being like, well, why can't I come to your house and do a burnout in the driveway?
Yeah. So and then calling them dickheads for saying no.
Well, you are a dickhead for not letting me do a burnout in your driveway. So that's where Luddenham's at the moment.
Marulan?
Marulan. So Lee from Driving Sports held a drift event there. Maybe 2 years ago.
I think so.
Now, roughly.
Yeah.
Just as a one-off, it had been years since it had been held there. At the time, he ran it on a weekday.
Yep.
Just as a test to
go.
see how it'd go.
working.
They ended up with did you drive that event?
No, I was working.
Okay.
Yeah.
They ended up with a decent number of cars, I think, actually showed up to it. But
Huge
one-
turnout. Yeah.
for a weekday. But I think one of the big issues they ran with was they wanted to be able to do consecutive laps, but with the noise restrictions, they could only have a certain number of cars on track at the same time. So I think they aimed for 2 cars at a time.
Yeah,
and
I'm pretty sure they were spread out too. So there was
Yeah.
you couldn't leave the start line until the other car was at a certain point down the track.
Yeah.
So it was
but
kind
then-
of slow from what I heard.
Yeah, and then what I got told ended up happening was it didn't end up even being muffler noise or wastegate that was creating and peaking the noise meter. It was when multiple cars at a time were driving and the tire screeching was all happening at the same time. So they ended up, I think they tried to spread out, I think 3 or 4 cars at a time, and they got pushed down to only being able to have 2 cars at a time, purely because of tire screeching, not because of muffler noise or engine noise or anything like that. But since then, I think what has happened is that the circuit's been bought by a couple of circuit racers. As far as I've been told, one of the neighbors who was the worst offender when it came to complaints had their house bought. So that property's now been bought, and there is a whole bunch of renos and things going on down there. So they're going to have. They've put nothing on social media. This is all within sort of the circuit race community that all this information sort of come through. But it's, as far as I'm aware, these guys are happy to spend some money, and it's just going to come down to the right approach from the right person to potentially open the door to them allowing us to go down there. So even if we wanted to go down there right now, I think with the track renovations going on that you can't even get on there anyway. So it's not even an option currently until that's finished. And I think, again, the clubs within New South Wales are ready to go to them at any point and sort of throw down our ideas on how we can run events and how we can make it sustainable and not do too much damage down there. I think there are a few other new tracks going in a few places.
Yeah, there's new track would be the Casa.
Yeah, up at Newcastle.
Yeah,
is that the
but
one?
they're very against drifting, so
Is Casa
absolutely-
the same as Circuit Italia, or are they 2 separate tracks?
I'm not
Because
sure.
as far as I'm aware, there's a couple of tracks going in up in that Newcastle area, but I know some were on and then some were off and all that sort of stuff. The Circuit Italia one has already put on their website that drifting is not going to happen on there.
That's
they're-
the
they're
one where it's super against drifting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're putting in a skid pan of some variety. And again, I'm not necessarily opposed to a skid pan if we're talking a decent sized piece of concrete to go and set up some crazy stuff and be able to grab
Third gear,
you know,
fourth gear,
third gear,
fifth
fourth gear. That's I guess all that's all that's all Tail and Benz was originally. It was a glorified skid pan.
It was
Uh,
a
it was Mitsubishi's
driving, yeah, testing
test track.
facility. Yeah, and they
Yeah,
had like a big long straight, and then they had like a round
a
skid pan,
and a
and
few
then
little link tracks coming
yeah,
on and off it.
that's it.
Yeah. So again, it's still just a glorified skid pan, but because it's got some shape to it, everybody's like, oh, it's a cool track to go and drive. And again, the South Aussie guys had it as something new away from running just at Malala and embraced it and just went out there and used it until it was brought up and now they've got something crazy going on down there. So yeah, so I think there's a few of those tracks being built, but again, I think a few of those tracks are being built by motorbike guys, and they're very anti drift. So I think it would be interesting to try and get a perspective from a motorbike guy more on as to the conditions and stuff like that, as to why who's a little bit more open to what the causes are, as opposed to the backlash that seems to be fights online between bike guys and drifters. Every time the drifters complain they're not allowed somewhere, and then the bike guys jump on and say, you drifters have killed multiple people because of rubber down and all this sort of stuff. But I'm pretty sure we haven't really had a death on it Sydney Motorsport Park ever. So
nothing with drifting. I don't think it's around the world. We haven't had a death with drifting either.
There has been recently where a wheel came off a car in Japan. I think it hit a spectator. Yeah. I think it hit a spotter or something like that.
Right.
But I guess I guess that their point is that it's what we do to the track that impacts them afterwards. So I guess it's coming up with a solution, and this is where we sort of get to Wakefield, because Wakefield is now open and willing, but there is now a drift levy on drift events being held down at Wakefield. And the drift levy is being put in place not only for dirt drops and that sort of wear and tear, but also because some really nice people like to leave dead tires, dead body kits, used oil, parts, you name it. Drifters will happily leave it in their pit bay, and that's where the drift levy has sort of come into effect. And again, it just impacts the minority. The minority are impacting the majority when it comes to that sort of thing. And I think this year, and I think at some stage we'll probably try and get Nick on one of these episodes. I think he'd actually be a really interesting guy to get on. But I think if he had known the direction things were probably going to take this year, he may have ended up doing another couple of events or tried to secure another weekend, I would imagine. But again, tried to do more than the 4 days. I more mean from that point of view that with high tech sort of not running with a low to no prospect of main circuit at Sydney Motorsport Park, and the fact that now Luddenham's said basically in the next 12 months that there won't be any sort of organised events for drifting on their circuit, that we've got 4 days at Wakefield, and that's all we've got for this year when it comes to that style of driving. So I'm sure they would have potentially done more if they'd known that was sort of going to play out the way it did. But again, you're talking big money for 1 day events down there.
Even
huge risk.
Weekday is expensive as well, so I think they're taking a big risk on the weekend.
But I think it's that's got enough notice that hopefully they should get a decent turnout. I know I'm planning on trying to get down for that event at Falls between DCA Tassie and the last round up in Queensland. So that sort of works for me. I'm happy to try and get down there for that. But the only other problem with that is it's the middle of June, and that weather will probably suit you because you're from Canberra and enjoy freezing your ass off. But
No, I don't like the cold weather. That's why I go to Japan in August, because it's snowing, almost snowing in Canberra.
and
So
you can't do
get used to the cold weather, but I don't. Doesn't mean I enjoy it.
yeah, and I guess you with the cold weather you don't like going out for your street inspections.
Street. Mm, I'm not going to answer that question again.
Come on, you said
You've got
banter.
to come down to. You've got to come down to Canberra.
For some street inspections.
Yeah, well, you have to check the lights and report them if they are out. So yeah, it's community service. Yeah, they have to pay these people, so I can do it for free.
That's fair. You could probably do out the front of mine. The street lights are out at the moment, but I'm not sure our neighbours would be that happy, and it's a fairly main road. So I guess that's where we're at with, and I guess
Kembla. What about Kembla? Did we talk?
Yeah, Kembla. So Kembla, we only know from the grapevine, I guess. Kembla was open last year. The owner's super keen for drifting because there seems to have been a fairly big explosion of go-kart facilities sort of open up in the Greater Sydney region right down to past Wollongong, all sorts of indoor, outdoor karting facilities showing up. So I think they were looking to expand their, I guess, ways of income streams, and they were allowing events to take place. And the last bash event that they ran down there, they ran at huge risk, facing fines and stuff from council because the event wasn't necessarily supposed to take place, or this they didn't. I'm not sure.
I didn't hear about
that. More so that they didn't have the exact written permissions that they were supposed to have.
Okay.
So it went to the council recently. Like a DA approval went to council recently, and all the Curse Sunday guys and a few others from the Sydney area went down and did a petition, and they were basically told that there wasn't enough on the petition, and a few other things weren't in line. So drifting at this stage, or anything other than go-karts on that track, because they were running on some of the drift nights that were just weeknights, they were running. You could take your car on the track as well, as long as it was registered. Even the drift cars, I'm pretty sure, were supposed to be registered for their regular little events. I think that was more of a way of taking care of insurance and scrutineering, because if it
make a street car kind of like a street event.
No. I think it was more. No, that wasn't the bash that was like that. It was more just their I guess track run events. Okay. Yeah, and I think by being street registered, you've had a mechanic look at it every 12 months. It's supposed to be safe. It's supposed to have good tires. You're liable for all those things, where we could show up with our unregistered cars that have just been defected or something like that, and be like, yeah, it's a well prepped race car, when it really isn't. Sort of like guys from Canberra with R31 Skylines.
I don't think any of us are running R31s at the moment.
So yeah, look, I think the Curse Sunday guys are still pushing to get that to happen. Supposedly the track owner is still wanting to pursue the potential of being able to develop it into being able to run more than that there, but I think it's a couple of years away from that happening now.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that's one that was well and truly within. Yeah, that was one that was well and truly within grasp though, and sadly haven't been able to get hold of it. With a little bit more support, it might have happened, but I think this is where the community getting a little bit closer together would actually open up some more options.
So that would be the tracks around Sydney then.
Yeah, I think that well and truly covers off, and then you've got Rally doing their own thing, still being run by it's a privately owned track being run. They're happy to take the income stream from drifting, so they continue to run it the way that they want to run it. So, I think so. That's where we're at track wise. So there is lots going on in the background with people trying to make things happen, but it can be a slow process because, again, as you said, for most of the places, we have zero entitlement to actually being on there, and that's an attitude, a thing we have to accept and work around to try and, I guess,
Everyone needs to make friends with the track owners.
go, buy them a box of chocolates and some flowers and do the right thing. But I guess it also starts at the places where we're allowed to be. Making sure things are cleaned up, making sure the attitude's good, because that information feeds down the line.
Yes. Especially when the next person comes the next day and they see all that, the stuff that's happened on the track, and then when the track owner says we had drifters the day before, then the rumors are going to keep spreading, aren't they?
Yeah, and as soon as something happens on one of those days, they're going to lay blame on what what we've been up to. So I think there is definitely still a lot going on with that. I guess what we're also looking at wanting to do this year, now that we have called a stop to Super Drift, is we have been
talking about we as in Australian Drift Club.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
our capacity in
there. Have been tossing around the idea of running, maybe a one-off little team drift competition, potentially on the figure 8.
How many cars are in team drift?
I do not disagree with you. We've had this discussion all day. I said it should be anywhere from 2 to 5 cars in a team because some people don't have friends.
That's okay. You can make friends.
I'm currently holding my hand up. Some people don't want to drive with me, but
I think 3 or more. 3 or more cars.
I completely agree with that. So hopefully we can get some teams going. But my reason behind wanting to run this is because I think when we all go out to the practice days, unless we're an organized group like the Team Red Stage guys, like what you guys do down at Wakefield, and get yourselves in a nice little train of cars, everybody tends to be like, oh, I don't know this person, so I'm just going to go solo pass it because...
there's a few groups around. There is definitely like Marvel, Hit and Run guys, Revolution, another group that, they go absolutely hard as well. Then you've got the Friends groups as well. Like I only know the ones in Canberra, but there's a bunch of them that hangs out with people like Dave Carter as well. So I don't know if they have a label themselves. I think they did have a sticker before, but I don't know what they called themselves.
But I guess it's getting the new guys to feel comfortable with potentially seeing that and being like, oh, that's cool. I want to be part of that, rather than only seeing it a couple of times. And I guess at most of those events, that sort of tends to be after your lunchtime, tends to be when it gets a little bit more loose and everybody's like, okay,
it's fun.
I've sort of worked the rust off. I'm happy that if I bend the car now or do a little bit of damage, I'm happy to pack it up and go home. So everybody starts to take.
No, you're meant to break the car, fix it, get back on the track. Not take it back up. That's what we were talking about the other week.
Yeah, it was. But I guess I do too many competitions, and I sort of, but before battles is like, oh, I want to get tandem practice in, but I can't win a battle if I don't have a car to win the battle with. So, I sort of tend to take it easy. But that attitude,
don't crash.
That attitude's got to change this year if I want to do any good.
What are you going to do?
What am I going to do? I don't know. Just try and get closer to people would be a good one.
Okay.
Also, having a car that runs for more than an event would be really good as well.
Okay.
But I think, so yeah, back to our team drift competition.
Yes.
Wanting it to do it more as I think just as a loose sort of event. Maybe a crowd, chosen event, or maybe a guest judge. Somebody doesn't.
Definitely fun judge. Yeah.
Not necessarily somebody who knows the scene, or you pick the first 3 kids that come in to spectate to be your judges, or something like that would be kind of fun too. for me, I sort of look at an event like that, and if it can be built to something cool, you sort of everybody wants to put their best foot forward when it comes to car presentation and driving ability, because if you're picking off using just random people, cars looking cool are gonna come into effect, and then
You should check out
yeah.
Kansai All Stars. That event is some of the cars aren't they're not similar, but yeah, they look cool. They definitely know what they're doing.
Yeah. Like the driving is cool, but again, like it's all part of the influence, and the more
The
influence you can
impact.
have, yeah, the more
Okay.
impact and influence you can have, the more chance of winning you've got, right? And everybody wants to win. So I think that would be. I look at it as a way of creating a stepping stone to competition. Most people who
Okay.
like drifting either go, I like competition or I don't like competition. But I had one of my mates came down to Calder Park with me for DCA. He had done first round of Super Drift and basically said enjoyed the experience of Super Drift, but for him the seat time for the amount of money, and where he was at the time was just like, nah, not for me. Competition is not for me, because what he had been exposed to from a hands-on perspective was our short little format, only a handful of laps. Then he came down to DCA, called a park with me, and yes, this is not me just getting all excited about DCA events, but this is my hands-on experience, and Rally was similar to this as well. Was being knocked out in the top 32, I got more laps than somebody like a Warwick Hill who came in the top 3 for that event, because I was able to jump back into my car once I was knocked out, and I could go and do a couple of laps between when guys were changing tires as I got deeper into the competition. And he was like, man, this is what competition is? I would do this. This is cool, because yeah, like the competition is part of it, but the reality is that it's not the majority of the event. It's just a really small portion of it. So I think if we can sort of get it back to it being fun like that, and not what people's ideas of competitions are, and now after the high tech on the figure eight circuit, we might actually have some more people interested in getting into some competition.
Yeah, definitely. I tried doing something like that, but it was a knockout tournament. I did suggest things like before, like a long time ago, big entry competition, where it's during any sort of practice session, like set between 2 and 3. It's almost like the 60 minutes to win it at DCA.
Yeah.
You gonna yawn?
I almost did.
Yeah, I saw that.
But I guess 60 minute to win it is a section of the competition put on during the DCA comp, where the afternoon after qualifying is done, basically you can win a bar tab, which isn't necessarily
a venue voucher.
A venue voucher.
It's not a bar tab.
Okay,
No,
well, Luke's
it's a
probably
venue
going to send.
voucher.
I'm probably going to get a really abusive message from Luke.
Luke's a really nice guy. What are you talking about?
I love
He
you,
gives
Luke.
you pointers and helps you out.
No, I'm more meant for
gives you
saying
opportunities and stuff like that.
So, yeah, it's basically who is judged off who drives the hardest in that afternoon session. Who wants to throw in the biggest angle, go the most wild? Because in qualifying, everybody tends to be a little bit safe, wants to put in some runs, especially at events like Tasmania. Yeah, not necessarily your safest, but if you've bombed one run, you sort of put in
cautious. Yeah. People they can't let loose until they get into that situation, like the 60 minutes to win it.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess the thing with doing a knockout competition is when you're trying to grow something it's discouraging.
Yeah.
By being told, hey, you're not good enough. Yeah, see you later. You can go wait until everybody else is.
To encourage you to get better, not discourage you. It's not so much you didn't do. You didn't. You shouldn't see it as you suck. It's like you need to do better next time.
Yeah, you need to go and practice more. But again, when you're talking that works on a national level for a high tech or a DCA, or as your pinnacle sort of state series or whatever. But if you're talking trying to get people involved type events, I
Yep.
think your round robins or your fun little sort of
Yeah.
those sort of things is
a good way to introduce them into it.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, like, oh, that was fun. Now I'm going to push myself to the next level, and I'm happy to get knocked out by, XYZ because they're better than me, because next time I go out there after that, I'm going to kick their ass. And I think I think we need to get in New South Wales. We need to not New South Wales because Rally's doing good things, but
It needs to be
we
more.
need to,
Yeah,
we need to get
in New South Wales.
Yeah, we need to get back to that. And I guess people sort of question why Rally works and the stuff down here doesn't work. But
I think
for
that's
me,
cost.
yeah, part of it is cost, but part of it is culture. Because I look at some of the guys who go up to Rally and they're from Newcastle. Now Rally's still 3.5 hours from Newcastle, but it's only 2 hours to Sydney. Yet they're all doing the trip up there, but they can go up there, they can camp. All their mates are doing it. They're showing up there. They've got a natural progression between amateur and pro. Rules are a little bit more relaxed when it comes to cars. Not when it comes to noise. Like, yes, they've got their noise restrictions,
pretty strict
but
on that.
yeah, they are really strict on it, which they have to be. But the cars, the rules are a little bit more open with the cars. So that culture's been there for a while, though. That's been in there for years, and I think it's a matter of you can't look at established things and go, we need to be there now. It's taking the time and seeing the journey that established thing took, and being like, how can we follow on that journey to get our thing to that level. And I think that's where we're at right now with so much of it.
Yeah, so we need those stepping stone events.
Yeah.
Introductions, or give opportunities for experiences, something like that.
Yeah.
It's hard to do, and it sometimes doesn't flow well because, yeah, like I said, we've tried doing it, and it's in clubs and other events, and yeah, it's difficult to run sometimes. But yeah, I know what you're getting at, and I'm looking forward to doing something like that. Probably, what would be better is a twin drift comp.
Yeah, I don't know. Twin drift for me is when you're looking at trying to, because you can balance it out, right? Like you can put all the emphasis on you need X number of drivers to pay for the event, and that's fair enough because the club or whatever wants to profit from the event, so they can afford to rent the track for their next event. But I think something like your team drift event is potentially going to pull a bigger crowd because there's and by pulling a crowd you do increase your income, and everybody's used to their standard format, where if you introduce something new and exciting, even if it's not new and it's not exciting, but it's deemed as being new and exciting, more people show up to it. And I think that's sort of something that can be exploited, I guess, if you want to use that to grow it and get people interested. And I got into the sport because of being a fan. Some people get into it because they're already into motorsport, or they saw something else and we're already really into skylines, and now look, I've got a skyline, I can go drifting, and they sort of progress into the sport that way. But the bigger fan base you build, the more chance I think you've got of guys jumping in and potentially learning to drive. So I think that's something that's definitely on the cards for later on in the year, once we've had a little bit more time to. We can see your chin now, mate.
Yeah, I think does it keep going up and up slowly? I don't even know.
I think so, because it ended up pretty far in front of your face, but I guess most people can't see it. EG's tried out his third, for people who are playing through audio, EG's playing with his third microphone. Everything else has sort of been similar to mine, where it's mounted to his headset, but he's got a microphone on a stand in front of him. But it appeared as though it was slowly
Kept going
raising up higher and higher.
I can check
and
back
was-
in the video.
It's
Or
almost,
maybe
was
I kept
almost,
moving closer and closer to it. I like hiding behind it. It's actually really it's good to hide behind it.
It's a little bit creepy, but that's okay. So yeah, I
Anyway,
think that's sort of where we're at the moment. It's Super Drift going on the quiet for this year isn't necessarily the death of Super Drift. It's building the kitty back up, getting excited about it again, giving people are saying, "Oh, I was building a car for this event." Don't stop building them. There's still events going on that you're better off having your roll cage. You're better off having your better setups, because it is just safer and more reliable to be doing it. But for 2019, we will hopefully be back with a proper season, and hopefully by that time we sort of know where some of the tracks and all that are at with us, so that we can make some better things happen. So all I can say for that subject is get out to as many club events, whether it be Revolution Days, Australian Drift Club Days, or Driving Sport Days, and get out there and drive as much as possible, and increase your skill level, and then be there ready to jump into it. And if you're just a fan of it, get out there and do it. Yeah, that's it.
Sylvia.
So
Easy.
So I
Manual
guess
turbo.
with-
So is that does that cover the topic that
I think so.
kind of did it stay on track? I'm not sure.
I think we stayed pretty on track. Like, we're trying to use comparisons of places, and there isn't going to be a silver bullet to fix the New South Wales scene, but it's still there, and people just got to get out and drive. So I guess moving forward with where we're at with even just with Clutch Kick, I think the response that we've had in the last, I guess, less than 7 days, or it's been about less than 7 days. We uploaded first episode on Friday. Second episode on Sunday. And we've had some great viewer or listener response.
Viewer and listener,
Yeah. I know
we'll do this again next week.
We'll try and do it next week.
But next weekend is DCA.
Yes. And Wednesday night, I'm sure we'll both be scrambling to try and get stuff ready. But chances are we're going to try and do this before we head off.
Yeah, because I can upload it on Wednesday.
We do this on Wednesday.
I know.
Today is Wednesday.
I know, but I have to. We can, if you do it beforehand, then I can upload it on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And it'll be ready to go at whichever day.
Yeah, we decide to drop it.
Yeah.
So with it, I guess all we can ask is, hopefully over the DCA weekend, we are going to try and endeavour to get some more non-podcast content.
I'll try and do the live stream again through this instead of through. I can't remember where I was doing it before. I was trying to
the one that you did from Cash Kings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll do it through this or through the DCA page, but hopefully through the DCA page.
What I'll do is I'll put a little logo on the stream if I do put it on there.
Yeah, that's fair.
DCA page. Yeah.
So we're going to try and EG's going to try and do that from down there. I'm going to try and get some time with a few of the drivers down at Mount Gambier and do some maybe 10-15 minute interviews and walk arounds their cars, because look, at the end of the day, yes, we're going to try and get some guests on here, but we're not going to get through all those guys. And whenever we do anything on here, we don't get that one-on-one time with their actual car, especially if we're calling in to guys from outside of either Canberra or Sydney. So it'd be cool to get a little bit of that. It also gives you guys some some visual stuff, so you don't have to just sit and listen to our two voices. So that's going to be, I guess that will be after next week's podcast. We will endeavor. So a few of the guys that I know have used just rip YouTube converters to turn this into MP3 or into MP4 so that they can watch it while they drive. So use that as an option to or listen while they drive. I won't admit to being guilty of watching things while I drive. So don't let the length put you off. There's ways around it. In the long run, yes, we will try and go to a podcast streaming service. But again, at this stage, we're trying to do it at a $0 cost to us until we are more established. And there is definitely a whole heap more to come. Don't be afraid to throw us your feedback. We're more than happy to hear it. We're just two dudes talking.
I think this time is mostly you talking, I noticed.
Nah, you talked a fair bit too.
Yeah, a little bit. Not as much as last week, though.
But I think...
it'd be nice if there was some sort of talk meter where we can see how many people... how much, when you're talking, when I'm talking. That'd be,
yeah, but
I
guess this week is... with the way drifting has been in New South Wales, has probably impacted me heavier than it's potentially impacted you, because you've got
have to travel.
and you do the Japan thing. So, but it's all sort of, it's all there, I guess. So yeah, throw some feedback at us, please, if you can.
Suggestions are good as well.
Yeah, throw suggestions out there. If you're wanting to be involved or be on, not directly involved with it, but be involved in one of the casts, just let us know. We've already been contacted by Drifting SA, who want to have a chat with us once Taylor Benz is almost ready. I think that was really cool. We were contacted within not that long of the first episode being put up.
Quick, yeah.
Which is like... Yeah,
and then there was other people that wanted to do segments as well with us.
Yeah. So that's all stuff that we're definitely taking on board. There's nothing that's been thrown up online that we haven't looked at and haven't taken on board. So don't be afraid to throw that up. If you can, do your best to try and share it around. We will try and do a little bit more. We're sort of learning how to be social media marketers at this stage, and we're sort of learning a little bit more about the analytics of YouTube and Facebook, how to get more views. So often the link itself won't be to the stream, won't be in the actual post. It will be in the comment section below, just because Facebook likes to stem anything that isn't directly uploaded to Facebook.
Actually, another thing I noticed, and I think someone else pointed out, was that if you start tagging people in the post, then they'll actually push it down as well.
Really?
Yeah. So if you try and say tag a large page into your page, it'll actually discourage that post from being seen.
Really? So
supposedly, I'm not sure. But I did post up a video the other day on the Team Red Stage page, and I tagged the Marvel guys in it, and I got less views than when I didn't tag anyone else in the videos.
But you would have probably gotten more if they had then gone on to share it, I guess.
Yeah, they didn't share it, so the Marvel guys didn't share the video.
You're awful guys, Newcastle guys, not very nice at all.
No.
And to think we said nice things about some of their members in earlier episodes.
Yeah.
Very rude of them. I'm sure we'll hear back from them. So yeah, throw us your suggestions. Please share it. I know this episode was a little bit disjointed in some ways, but so much has happened in the last 7 days within the New South Wales scene, and there is even some other stuff that hasn't.
There's a lot of things that Greg wanted to talk about.
Yeah, hasn't.
He hasn't really covered it.
hasn't been covered, but I think in time some of that stuff will slowly make its way out. But I think next week, hopefully, I guess we're only a day out from, or a couple of days out from Mount Gambier at that stage. So what we might have a look at doing is maybe if we can get a driver entry list or something from. I guess maybe not probably a good idea with you judging it, but it might be interesting to go through the driver entry list and sort of see what people are bringing and see who sort of could be the dark horses for 2018. Might be an interesting one. And then after Mount Gambier, we've got a bit of a break before any other competitions, so that's probably a good time to get into some other subjects.
We're not focusing on competitions.
No, we're not focusing on competitions, but the reason we're focused on competitions,
it's because it's
been
a hot topic at the moment.
Yeah, and we're so close to a season starting.
Up. Yeah.
So as soon as we're on that break after that, there'll be lots of other subjects covered.
Like Japan. I think Japan would be a good topic.
Yeah, Japan. Just sort of, I think that the North Americans sort of come out of their winter season, so they're going to have. Yes, I know it's a competition, but they'll have FD. but they will also have all their final bout events.
Yeah.
And all those sort of events. So all that as North America and the Northern Hemisphere comes out of their winter, a lot more stuff starts to happen as well. And as we sort of roll into our year, more and more events pop up. So yeah, we're going to endeavour to bring some more coverage on some of that stuff.
We've also got Queensland Matsuri as well.
We do, and we'll both be there. Well, hopefully we'll both be there. So that should definitely be a fun one. That's going to be my first Matsuri event ever. And I'm turning it into a 3-day trip or 4-day trip because I'm going to go up and do Archie beforehand. So there's drifting is definitely dead in Australia.
100%.
100% dead in Australia. So
it's just a bit far, that's all.
Yeah, it's a bit far, but look, if you're going to make the trip to do one event, but you can do 2 tracks in 4 days and get, that much seat time, then make it worth your while. Don't whinge that you've got to go that far and then not make the most of it. So
I might check out the streetlights on Queensland then.
You're going to check out the streetlights, are you? Just on short course or something, right? All right, so I think that's where we're at with this one. I think we've probably gone for a while. Where are we at the moment?
I'm not sure because I started recording it before we started. So
I would say we've probably done like a good hour and a half, probably again.
An hour and a half, yeah. I think it'd be an hour 40.
Yeah, shit. We've bored people to death. So we're going to get more structured.
Falling asleep as well.
Yeah, we're going to get more structured. We're going to get more topics. We're in the same accommodation down at Mount Gambier, so we're going to start getting some more sort of some things down on paper and be a little bit more structured with it. But all I can say is thank you for the great response to start with. It gives us a little bit more motivation to keep moving forward and to make it a little bit more professional. So I thank you guys for that.
If you can see in the video, I'm trying to be more professional. This looks more legit than it did before. Yeah?
Totally more legit. All right, are we high-fiving this one out? Everybody said last week that like our attempt was like absolutely pitiful. Am I in the right spot?
No, you've got to.
My camera moves every week.
Oh, does it? Yeah. So that's
there?
It. Just a tiny bit more.
So more forward or backwards?
Away from you. So that's it. There. Too far. Okay.
Okay. For people playing at home, I don't have split screen. EG has split screen because he only has Windows 7. So yeah. All right.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
That was so off. Try again.
Was it?
Yeah.
All right. You call it.
3, 2, 1. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Are you pulling back or are you not?
Yeah.
Pulling back. Oh no! Now you're totally off. That's it. Okay. All right. So we're gonna pull our arms back and then go like this, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So 3, 2, 1. That's it.
Yeah, but you don't. You're the one who pulls back and just sits there for 5 seconds. All right. Thanks for
but
listening, guys.
The video is not delayed though, is it?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I don't. Okay, or whatever. All right.
Yeah,
No
whatever.
worries.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for listening, guys,
Okay.
and we'll catch you on the next one.
See you.